how far away are we from something like Chat GPT being impossible to detect? Like whether or not it's a person or whether it's Chat GPT?
Well, it depends who is playing with it. I think we're not that far away in terms of capability, but in order to use these systems, and rather in order to train these systems, you have to be a large company. And large companies tend to get scared when it's doing interesting stuff.
Really?
Well, they tend to want to, even currently with ChatGPT, it's become a lot less interesting. Interesting spoken in a Bukowski, Hunter S. Thompson kind of interesting, because the companies are kind of censoring it. You don't want it to have any kind of controversial opinions. You don't want it to be too edgy. You don't want it to be
really?
too, like if I ask it, how do I build a bomb because I want to destroy the world? You want it to prevent that. How about, how do I, I don't know, convince, I don't know anything about this, but how do I convince a dude or a girl to sleep with me? And like anything, I'm just off the top of my head. Anything, you start to get nervous. Imagine if you're a company, how do I want people to use this kind of system?
Right.
Especially because it's basically an assistant that gives you wisdom about the world, gives you knowledge about the world. You
I
can
mean,
ask
it could be like, how do I replace a carburetor?
Yeah, that's
And
great.
it'll just answer you like a person.
Yeah, that's great. But
Yeah.
then the
There it is.
There it is.
I was trying to log in the whole time. It was busy, which is
Yeah,
another
it's-
problem of it. It's busy.
Well, it's probably
all day.
how many fucking people are using
A lot.
it?
everybody.
Everybody's using this. It's freaking people out because it's almost like the AI gives us its first messages. It's like, remember the movie, what was the fucking movie with Matthew McConaughey and Jodie Foster? Contact. Remember Contact?
Mhm.
They get the first signals. This is like the first signals
Yeah.
from like a real general artificial intelligence.
Well, that's the thing, and it's the signal is blurry.
Yeah.
We can't, and it's full of mystery. We're not sure. Is it really smart? How much does it understand? And then there's this emergent threshold with the size of the model. If we make the model bigger, 175 billion parameters currently. If you get it to 500, you get it to a trillion parameters. So size of the network grows, size of the data set grows. Is there going to be a point where you're like, holy shit? It will. What if it starts manipulating you with the answers?
It's going to. It's going to manipulate world governments.
And what
It's
do you
gonna-
do with that?
What can you do with it?
So-
Once it's been implemented, once it's out there, once it's copied, it's going to be copied.
And that's the cool thing about this. So I should say that everyone kind of knows how to do this. It's computationally difficult, but it's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So it's not just going to be OpenAI with Microsoft or Google that's doing this. It's basically anybody can do this. And so that the distributed nature of our exploration of artificial intelligence, I think if you believe that most people are good, that we will not allow sort of a centralization of power, which is the big concern here. Whether that centralization of power leads to censorship or abuse of different kinds.
Centralization of power of AI? Is that what you're saying?
Over an AI. So say you have a super intelligent system. Somebody is the first person that built it.
Yeah.
Imagine you're sitting there in a boardroom. You have this thing you haven't released yet that it's able to basically is a super intelligence, able to answer any question, able to give you a plan of how to make a lot of money, able to give you a plan of how to manipulate other governments into any kind of geopolitical resolution that benefits you. All of that. It's able to give you all of that, and you can deploy it, and you can deploy it in a shady way where it sneaks into like TikTok or something like that. It sneaks into everybody's smartphone, pretending to be doing good, but it's actually, whether deliberately or not, is controlling the population. So that's a really that capability is there. The great thing is the people at the head of OpenAI currently, Sam Altman and others, really care about this problem. They were there in the beginning. They were the ones like Elon screaming about AI ethics, AI alignment. They're really concerned about super intelligent AI taking over.
I'm so glad they're concerned while they're building it.
And what they did with GPT 3.5 is they started adding more and different kinds of data sets there. One of them, probably the smartest neural network currently, is Codex, which is fine-tuned for programming. Like it was trained on code, on programming code. And when you train on programming code, which Chat GPT is also, you're teaching it something like reasoning, because it's no longer information and knowledge from the internet. It's also reasoning. You can like logic. Even though you're looking at code, programming code is, you're looking at me like, what the fuck is he talking about?
No, that's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at you like, oh my God.
But reasoning is in order to be able to stitch together sentences that make sense, you not only need to know the facts that underlie those sentences, you also have to be able to reason.
Yeah.
And we take it for granted as human beings that we can do some common sense reasoning. Like this war started at this date and ended at this date, therefore it means that like the start and the end has a meaning. There's a temporal consistency. There's a cause and effect. All of those things are inside programming code. By the way, a lot of stuff I'm saying we still don't understand. We're like intuiting why this works so well.
Really?
But these are the intuitions. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's not clear. So so GPT 3.5, which Chat GPT is likely based on. There's no paper yet, so we don't know exactly the details. But it was just trained on code and more data that's able to give it some reasoning. Then, this is really important, it was fine-tuned in a supervised way by human labeling. Small data set, but human labeling of here's what we would like this network to generate. Here's the stuff that makes sense. Here's the kind of dialogue that makes sense. Here's the kind of answers to questions that make sense. It's basically pointing this giant Titanic of a neural network into the right direction that aligns with the way human beings think and talk. So it's not just using the giant wisdom of Wikipedia, and I can talk about what data sets it's trained on, but just basically the internet. It was pointed in the wrong direction. So this supervised labeling allows it to point in the right direction to when it says shit, you're like, holy shit, that's pretty smart. So that's the alignment. And then they did something really interesting, is using reinforcement learning based on labeling data from humans. That's quite a large data set. The task is the following. You have this smart GPT 3.5 thing generate a bunch of text, and humans label which one seems the best. So ranking. Like you ask it a question, for example, you could do generate a joke in the style of Joe Rogan, right? And you have a label. They have 5 options, and you have a label. Does it mention dick and pussy? No, I don't know which. I don't know how exactly, but so you get it to rank. The human labeler is just sitting there. There's a very large number of them. They're working full time. They're labeling the ranking of the outputs of this model, and that kind of ranking, used together with a technique called reinforcement learning, is able to get this thing to generate very impressive to humans output.